Hey guys, this is Tanner Invest here. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Today we're going to talk about why I'm buying even more BMNR. So just a month ago, 2 months ago, people were super euphoric about BMNR, Tom Lee. Everybody was in on the trade, liquidity through the roof. I think it was trading at one point like the 22nd most liquid stock in the entire market, which is crazy. Crazy good for Ethereum. But over the past, month, 2 months, there's been a lot of fear, uncertainty, doubt. FUD, you've heard the acronym. But a lot of people just have changed their opinions on cryptocurrency, and it's crazy because nothing has changed from a macro perspective at all. Like nothing has changed. There's actually been a lot more bullish things that have come out and bullish factors behind cryptocurrency, and so I am explaining why. This is not financial advice, but I have made several purchases over the last few days in BMNR, especially when it's been under $40. I've been really hitting that sweet spot between 37 and 40. And I still believe, that ETH has a long way to go with all the things going on. So today we're going to talk about price action, but also we're going to get into a lot of bullish catalysts that have happened since my latest video. And then a couple of more things that I want you guys to hear about how the landscape is changing and how I've actually become more bullish as of lately. So let's go ahead and hop in. I'm going to try to make this all in one take. So this is my very first take of this video. And we're going to style it all. So this, I wanted to show this meme because someone in my last video was like, what memes? They were asking questions because I mentioned Tom Lee memes that have been come out since Ethereum has dipped. So let's get into Ethereum price action first. We can see over the past month, we're down 17%. BMNR has actually underperformed ETH. Okay, so what that means is that not only has the asset traded down, or due to the underlying asset, BMNR, the digital asset Treasury, has traded down as well, but it's traded further, which means there's been actually a contraction of their multiple on the MNAV. Talked about a lot. So over the last month, we've seen a bit of a gap there. Over the last 3 months, ETH's down 20%, while BMNR is down 37%. So there's even a bigger gap there because 3 months ago, you can see we were trading at very high. It's kind of a bad chart to look at, the 3-month chart, because we were trading at some real highs there. And when it was trading in the, now we're at 40. I've seen it as low over the past week. We've seen it at $37. So in my opinion, that was a screaming buy, and that's why I've been buying. I'm not telling you to do the same. So keep in mind, this is very risky, but over time, if you believe in the macro like I do, you believe in these catalysts that can push ETH forward, then likely BMNR will trade as a leveraged position on that with a multiple on their net asset value. So we could see a pretty fast expansion in the stock price if things pan out. But back to this meme, people were saying, hey, this is what's happening. Tom Lee's being spotted in LA, being chased by mad investors. We've seen Tom Lee doing damage control. This one's hilarious because you guys know Tom Lee is notorious for going on CNBC, being in front of the camera a lot, talking about his macro trades. And this is absolutely hilarious. And then this other third one, Tom Lee selling his ETH stack before fleeing the country. This meme has come out a lot over the past few months. Just Tom Lee sitting in the airport working. He's a hard worker and he's always very busy. But let's go ahead and hop into some reasons why I'm trading. First, Tom Lee is still coming out saying that, his predictions by year end, guys. We're at mid-November now, and we have a month and a half left. And he's still calling for 9,000 to 12,000 by January. And Bitcoin, his projections have actually been lowered because he was saying 250,000. Now he's saying high 100,000s to possibly 200,000. There's also something I want to get into there's some more Bitcoin news here, but first let's jump into some of the big catalysts. We had at the end of the quarter, a lot of these 13F filings have come out, and Vanguard, and other big banks, which we'll get into in a second, are disclosing their positions. So BMNR, we can see here from a 13F on November 7th, they disclosed ownership of almost 3 million shares of BMNR at a huge amount of money. So their current position value is over $100 million. Pretty big bet by Vanguard. You got to take these as a grain of salt. These are big banks. They do a lot of hedging and they do a lot of buying. And so they have their hands in a lot of different things. $100 million to a company like Vanguard at the end of the day isn't a ton, you know what I mean? But it is good that they're buying because clearly they want some exposure, just like, you know, you and I do. They want some of their portfolio to reap the benefits if ETH is the next big macro trade, right? So we have things like Charles Schwab investing in 1.7 million BMNR worth $88.9 million. That's pretty big as well. We also have JPMorgan cutting SBET. I think this. Yeah, there's another one I'm missing. Another big bank out there also disclosed positions, but I'm not gonna go find that for you guys. Like I said, this is gonna be one take. They did also cut their SBET position, which this worries me. You know, I do hold both SBET and BMNR, you know, but I've told you guys time and time again over the past few videos, like I'm still more bullish on BMNR just because it's been able to hold that higher MNAV and they've been able to the ATM while SBET's been trading under MNAV for quite a bit of time. And so maybe that's why BMNR JP Morgan bought SBET and then filed shares claiming that they bought BMNR. Maybe they used some of that SBET position to buy those BMNR positions. Because ultimately, if you're in SBET, if you're in BMNR, if you're in ETH, if you're in any other ETH digital asset treasury companies, the number one thing is the underlying asset. So I've actually thought about maybe cutting some SBET. And guys, don't hate me for this, but if all vehicles are trading based on the underlying asset, and I could tax loss harvest to save myself, you know, quite a bit of money on tax loss harvesting. I've lost quite a bit on SBET, not gonna lie. And I can put that in and put that into either BMNR or into ETH itself. That might be a good idea for me because I can reap the benefits of tax loss harvesting. Haven't done that yet though, and I will let you guys know if I do. But let me know your comments below. Is that something I should do, or do you think that's just stupid? If you're an SBET bull out there, do you think, you know, I should just hang on to the stocks or those shares? One other thing is we're also seeing catalysts like Robinhood CEO on his earnings call. Crypto is becoming the infrastructure for global financial systems. We've talked about this time and time again. Tokenizing assets is something that everyone is getting into. There's going to be a huge rush going into the real world assets here in the next year or so. We also Kathy Wood. This is a very interesting, and I'll actually just play the beginning of this because Kathy Wood talks about how her valuation of stablecoins is actually lowering her bullish outlook on Bitcoin, which means Bitcoin people aren't going to love this, but Bitcoin as money has kind of is a narrative that's kind of gotten hurt by the rise of Ethereum and the rise of stablecoins, because back in the day, Bitcoin had two theses. You know, it's not just gold; it's also there's a money aspect to it, and that's kind of getting, you know, stomped over right now because Ethereum is and Solana and other layer twos as well. They're just a way better way to transact fast with stablecoin technology, and so Bitcoin as money narrative is just a little bit faltered. So let's listen to what she has to say. Let me make sure my volume's.
Stablecoins are usurping part of the role that we thought Bitcoin would play. So our bullish forecast out there is 1.5 million by 2030. Given what's happening to stablecoins, which are serving emerging markets in a way that we thought Bitcoin would, I think we could take maybe $300,000 off of that bullish case just for stablecoins. So watch that.
So if you guys didn't hear that, I don't know how loud that was coming across, but she said that her bullish thesis by 2030, their bullish outlook for Bitcoin is for Bitcoin to be at $1.5 million. They're bullish, not their base case. That's their bullish case. But she said take 300,000 off the top of that, and that's now their new 2030 bullish case is $1.2 million per Bitcoin. I mean, listen, guys, in the next 5 years or four years, essentially, if we can get Bitcoin to 1.2 million, can you guys imagine? We're going to make a lot of money. I mean, I hope that happens. Crazy. But that even means it's even more bullish for things like Ethereum and Solana and all these chains that have stablecoin technology running through them. And so a couple other things is we're seeing this is why Ethereum, like we're seeing real world assets and stablecoin supply. We'll see here the stablecoin supply is just through the freaking roof, guys. And then we also see the application revenue going through the roof. So we're starting to see a huge landslide of stablecoin and real world assets as well. I wanted to share this. I'm not going to go through this interview. This is a 57-minute interview. Great interview, by the way, from Duncan at Flood Capital. I'd highly recommend following him on X. Duncan had an entire 57-minute sit-down interview with Mike Novogratz. So Mike Novogratz is the CEO of Galaxy. This hat, no, they're not sponsored. I just love the company and love the investment right now. Highly recommend watching this video. They talk a lot about crypto in general, the macro behind crypto. And he really mentions that he thinks the floodgates are open once this market structure bill gets put in place. And I've talked about this time and time again. The Clarity Act is something that's massive for crypto. And he talks about it again in this interview, how he thinks that is going to be the floodgates. He said, that's when the big boys and the institutions know that the water is safe and that they can jump in. So that's huge to say. That's crazy. So also, he mentioned that bullish in general on stablecoins, real world assets, tokenization of credit, tokenization of assets. Obviously, they're going to start his company. They want to position themselves to win in the tokenization world. He wants a piece of that pie, and he wants the biggest piece. So, highly recommend watching this video if you're interested. And then they also came out, just a little plug on Galaxy, they came out with a new report on tokenization and the rise of tokenization. You can go here and you can get it sent to your email. And so highly recommend that. This is where you'd come and download the report. Now, I want to get into the biggest crypto news. I think this is the biggest news yet, is that SoFi, they are now the first and only nationally chartered bank to launch crypto trading for consumers. So they now, in SoFi, they're a nationally chartered bank. You can go right into their investment platform, and now you can buy crypto. Now, they did this in the past. They actually got rid of it because of all the regulatory landscape. I mean, you guys got to remember that the previous SEC chairman was like completely against crypto. The previous administration was completely against crypto. The Donald Trump administration, no matter how much you guys might love him or hate him, has done a lot of great things for cryptocurrency. You know, the Genius Act coming out now. There's bipartisan legislation coming out for the Clarity Act, but there's been so much more. But part of the Genius Act actually allowed nationally chartered banks to use things like stablecoin technology and actually launch crypto trading for their customers. So SoFi is the first one, which you guys don't know. SoFi is like my third or fourth largest position in my entire portfolio. I've been I've been an investor of theirs since like 2022, 2023. My average cost on them $7. You know, not to toot my own horn here, but I love this company. I've been really tuned in to their company for years now, and I think this is massive. And so there's this interview here. Shout out to Tanner Manson. He's one of my favorite people that follows SoFi specifically. But on the CNBC interview with CEO Anthony Noto, he talks about the importance of this. And, the props to the guy interviewing him, mentioned that he's like, hey, why don't other banks do this? And he said, I don't know. I can't speak on the behalf of other banks, but we're doing it for these reasons. And so the reporter was like, well, what happens when other banks start doing this? Well, what happens is it's a flood of capital, flood of liquidity. Guys, imagine if every bank, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, we have massive institutional banks that all their clients now have instant access to potentially getting cryptocurrency. I mean, massive. So what makes SoFi unique, though, is that they not only are a bank, they also have an investment platform within their bank. So I could see in the future, though, banks using more stablecoins, potentially offer crypto trading to their investors. But seriously, banks, now that the Genius Act has passed and now that this market structure bill is going to be passed, they're going to be recommending Bitcoin to their customers, in my opinion, at least a small percentage of their portfolio. And one question that CEO Anthony Noto here was asked, and I'm actually going to play this. Thank you, Tanner. A shout out to you for this video. I want you guys to hear this. So he was asked, does the Noto family invest in Bitcoin?
And valuation standpoint.
Can I ask, does the Noto family invest in crypto right now?
Yes, we do. I have about 3% of my investable assets in cryptocurrency.
Mostly in Bitcoin, or what's the?
Mostly in Bitcoin.
And we were early?
I was not super early. We've done perfectly fine. We have exposure to it because, one, I believe we're investing in a technology, not in a currency. The analogy I use with people is imagine if in 1990 you could have bought a piece of the World Wide Web through some coin called the World Wide Web coin. It's very similar to that. These are networks, they're communication networks used for payments and other applications.
What do you make? We were.
I mean, guys, that is so bullish to hear. I mean, this is a CEO of a nationally chartered bank that just added crypto to their platform. And I would recommend this entire, interview. He does say cryptocurrency is very risky. It could go to zero. It definitely shouldn't be your entire portfolio. It should be a smaller portion. We've heard Tom Lee say it should be 25% if you're younger, which is just mind-boggling to me. Mine currently is trading around a 15% of my portfolio personally. But Anthony Noto mentions that, it's 3% of his portfolio. His portfolio is a lot bigger than mine. But he has said that, I love the analogy there. It's like getting a piece of the internet back in 1990 where you could have a piece of that because it's tokenized. I mean, that's what tokenization ultimately is going to do for everything. But the fact that Ethereum, Solana, like these, you're going to have a piece of potentially the entire financial infrastructure in the future. I mean, a large part of the financial infrastructure, if you're as bullish as I am on what blockchain is going to do for the future. So that's it for me, guys. I know this was obviously a freestyle video as always, but if you enjoyed, please consider liking, subscribing. I'm over 4,500 subs. And I plan to keep this going. Sorry, the videos have been a little slower lately. I've literally had a construction crew at my house for the past week and a half, 2 weeks doing this screen and porch. Almost done. It should be done by this weekend. So that'll give me more time to actually sit down and talk to the camera without there being a guy right next to my window. And I also got a new territory adjustment, my sales role. So I've been super busy because I essentially got to have to start over in a certain way and go into new zip codes that I hadn't gone into before and meet new customers. So I've been really busy, but thank you guys. I know no one's been harping on me to make videos, but I'm just a little hard on myself. So thank you guys. Have a good one. As always. See ya.